Hello there folks, my name is Nick, and today we're taking a look at Hanabi. Now, first thing I want to mention is that I firmly believe that in a number of years, Hanabi will be in the running for the board or card game with the most versions and editions, because even though this game is only a few years old at this point, there's this version that I have, which is the North American R&R Games version, which just came out in the past year. There is the original version of the game from Europe. There's another version they put out that had another card game on the flip side of the cards. There's a deluxe version of this one that it comes with big tiles and racks. There's a square version that comes in a tin. There's another version, I'm not sure if it's out yet or if it's coming out, that uses oversized, like Seven Wonders sized cards. And I think there's even another version I thought I heard about. There's a lot of versions of this game. And the reason there's a lot of versions of it is because it's very, very popular. And there's a few things that are leading to that popularity. First off, the game is designed by Antoine Bauza. And that's probably the biggest factor for me because I'm an official Antoine Bauza fanboy. The guy does great stuff. Ghost Stories to Kaido, they're on my shelf somewhere back here. And Takenoko, I have the giant Takenoko here, but even the base one is just great family gateway, nice, awesome looking game. So the guy does good work. But aside from that, this game also won the Spiel des Jahres award for 2013. Now, if you're just more of a casual gamer and you're watching this video, you may not know what the Spiel des Jahres is. And really, it's not a huge deal to the mainstream gaming public in North America. But in Europe, it's huge. And amongst hardcore gamers worldwide, it's also a really, really big deal. Basically, the Spiel des Jahres is an award given out to Germany to the game of the year that most appeals to family and casual gamers while still being a quality game that hardcore gamers would also want to play. The game is also cooperative, which has been a huge trend in the last couple of years. So all these things together means that the game is sort of bound for a certain amount of success, and it's certainly met that. Now, what is the game? As you can see, it's very small. It's just a deck of cards, essentially, with some tokens. Like I said, it's a cooperative game. What you're essentially trying to do is make sets of cards that represent fireworks displays. The theme is sort of lightly pasted on, but you try to make sets of cards. They're different colors, and you want to make the sets from 1 to 5, starting with 1, going up to 5, and just basically adding up the points at the end that you earn for doing so. Very simple, right? The problem is, or I should say the catch is, you don't know what cards are in your hand. So everyone's got a hand of cards, and they're going to hold them outwards, and only your fellow players at the table, your teammates, get to see what's in your hand, and you get to see what's in their hand. But you can't just say what's in everyone's hands. You have to do it in a certain way that can be kind of brain-burny, kind of tough, and even a little bit stressful. But let me show you some more details about the game, then we're going to come back, and I'll tell you my final opinion of it. Hanabi is a cooperative game in which 2 to 5 players are trying to make the most extravagant fireworks displays. You really don't lose the game. Essentially what you're trying to do is just have the most points for the best fireworks displays at the end of the game. The fireworks displays are represented by colored cards. Now there's 5 different main colors, and they come in, each color has cards from 1 to 5. And there's different dispensations of the cards. There's 3 1s for each color, 2 2s, 2 3s, 2 4s, and only 1 5. Now, the goal is just to make these colored sets and put them in order. So you have to play the 1 before you can. So, for instance, here's the yellow 1. So in order for me to play the yellow 3 after that, I'd have to have already played the 2, and so on and so forth. If you try to play a color out of a numbered color out of order, then it counts as an illegal move. So I couldn't play the 2 first, for example, and then go back. I also can't start a new color, a new row of colors, so I can't put down the 1 here and then take one of the other ones and start another one. That's also considered an illegal move. Now, whenever a invalid move is taken in this game, you have to remove one of these tokens, which are sort of like little fuses, essentially representing that you have 3 lives. So as soon as you take off the last fuse, boom, there's a little explosion marker there, and that means that the game is over. The players can no longer try to get any more points. You tally up whatever points you happen to have left. Now, of course, this is very basic, and just trying to make numbered sets doesn't sound very interesting. Well, the catch of Hanabi is that each player at the beginning of the game is going to get either 5 or 4 cards, depending on the number of players, and whatever cards you get are going to be held away from you. So you're going to be playing the entire game like this. You cannot see your own cards, but you can see everyone else's cards that they have in their hands. And you can't just go around saying anything that you want about other people's hands. So on your turn, you basically have 3 actions. You'll decide who's going to go first, and you have 3 choices of what to do. Your first choice could be just to play a card. Now, playing a card can be dangerous because essentially you're just throwing out a card blindly unless you have information. So you just say, okay, I'm playing this card and hoping for the best, and oh no. Okay, see, there's no white number 1 out there, so this was an illegal move. This goes into the discard pile, and then we lose a life. And you'll keep the rest of the cards out here after dealing out the cards. Every time you play a card, whether it's successful or not, you'll draw a card to replace it. That's one thing you can do. The other thing you can do, however, is give a clue. Now, this is the action you want to take if someone doesn't have information on their hand and you want to give them information. So you have these little clue markers out here with little clock faces on them. Whenever you give a clue, you're going to flip one of these over, signifying that they are finite. Once you're out of these 8 clues that you have, then you're on your own. So in order to give a clue to someone, you'll flip one of those tokens over and you'll point at someone's hand, and you're going to tell them every instance of a color or every instance of a number. For example, so of course I wouldn't be seeing my own hand, but let's say that this is the contents of my hand and someone wanted to give me a clue. That person could point at the cards in my hand, so my hand would be like this, and they would point at individual cards, and they would say this card and this card are blue. They could not say this card is blue and not tell me that the other card was blue, and I just dropped a card. But anyways, now if they wanted to do the numbers, again, they could tell me this is number 1, or this is a 4, or this is a 3, or this is a 2. But let's say in this instance I happen to have more than 1, they would have to tell me this card is a 1 and this card is a 1. They wouldn't be able to tell me both the color and the number with the same clue. And I would have no idea, unless someone used a clue on me previously, what colors these actually are. But again, if someone wanted to give me the color green on it with a future clue, they could tell me, okay, this card is green and this card is green. Well, now I have, if I remembered correctly, I now have perfect information on this card, that it would be a green 1. But I have to remember that. People cannot remind you of what they told you from previous clues. All they can say is, what do you remember about your hand? Once you tell them what you remember about their hand, they cannot confirm or deny it, but it does tell them whether they need to waste another clue to remind you about something in your hand. So that's another action you can take, is giving a clue. But, like I said, those are finite. And how do you get clues back? Well, optionally on your turn, your third option is to simply discard a card. Discarding a card works like playing a card. You're going to do it blindly, but instead of trying to play it out to the board, you simply put it in the discard pile. The reason this is dangerous is because, like I said at the beginning, there's a certain dispensation of cards, including only 5 for each color. So at the end of the game, you're counting the highest valued card in every set of colors. So if you're discarding one of the 5s, that essentially means you're never going to get the highest score because there's only 1 for each color. But discarding a card does have the added benefit, whether it was a good thing or not to discard that certain card, of resetting one of the clues. So that might be the only way that you get your clues back. Well, actually, I take that back. There is one other way you get your clue back, and that is from successfully completing a row of cards. If you go through them 1 to 5 of one color, when you play the 5th card, not only do you complete that color, but you also get one of your clues back right away. This is going to keep going on until either you lost 3 lives and essentially are knocked out from getting more points, or until the deck runs out. When the deck runs out, the person who drew the last card, the next person gets their turn, then you'll go around and finish the round, including the person who drew the last card will have a chance to play, and then you stop and add up whatever points you have and just compare it to the chart in the rule book, which tells you just exactly how well you did. The best amount of points you could get would be 25, which is basically legendary. Everyone left speechless, stars in their eyes, blah, blah, blah. But really, that's all you're playing for. There's no win or lose, just getting the most points. Now, there is an optional variant you can play with this game, which is to add a sixth color. This is the rainbow color, and there's a couple of different ways you can use this. You can either use it as a completely different color, which is to say that when someone gives you a clue, you would do the numbers the same way. In other words, if you had like a green and a red one together with a rainbow one, you'd say this, this, and this are ones. But if you give the color, you would say this, this, and this are rainbow, or whatever you want to call this color. So it acts like another color, which does increase difficulty quite a bit. But if you want to make it even more difficult, you could say that the rainbow cards, in addition to being their own color, also count as every other color as well. So when you're giving someone a clue about their hand, and you want to point out that there are 2 red cards in their hand, if there are any rainbow colored cards, you also have to count those. So at any given point, these can count as every color for the purposes of giving it as a clue, but have to count as their own color for actually playing to the board. So the game is actually really difficult enough as it is, but that is another way to keep the game fresh. And that's basically Hanabi. You're just giving clues to people, playing cards, hoping that you can get the most points, and work together with your teammates to make the most extravagant fireworks display. So that's Hanabi, and I have a small confession to make, and the people that know me in my gaming group already know this, but I'm one of those people that's more of a metagamer in the sense that I often find that the reactions and behavior of the people playing the game is just as fascinating as of the game itself. And Hanabi brings out some very interesting things out of people, primarily stress. Now this is something I find very interesting because I don't really feel stressed when I play Hanabi. I mean, I suppose there is a tension there, and while I'm actually playing the game, it can feel a little bit stressful, but afterwards I'm like, wow, that's awesome. Kind of the same feeling I get in a much smaller scale of games like, other cooperative games like Robinson Crusoe or Yggdrasil, which are just really hard games, and you constantly feel like you're on the razor's edge. Hanabi also gives that feeling, but of course the theme is very abstract, and you're just getting points, so to me, it's not nearly as big a deal. And I consider it to be a very casual, light game. I would bust it out anytime someone... I always recommend it right up there with Love Letter, Lost Legacy, Sushi Go, No Thanks. Any of the light games that I have that we're trying to kill time with at the beginning or end or sometimes in the middle of a gaming session. Other players in my group feel the opposite. I have several people in my group who will tell me objectively, Hanabi is a fine game. It's a well-designed game that I really don't want to play. Because the game can be stressful for them. Because it is brain-burning. There's no doubt about it. It's not only trying to make those sets, if you look at it in one sense, it's very simple. You're trying to make these sets of cards, and you have a limited amount of resources to use in order to make that happen. This is really a hand and resource management game. You really just have you have the clues that you can give, and then you've got your hand of cards and what you're going to do with them. So it's very simple, but the social interaction of trying to get someone to get on the same wavelength as you and do what you're suggesting that they do, that is the part that can be very stressful for people. I kind of feed off of that, like some sort of vampire. So I don't mind that at all. But others don't. And I think it gets down to the core of people who generally want to focus more on heavier sort of Euro games, or maybe not even Euro games, but just games that have more of a concrete set of rules and not as much social interaction. Whereas I kind of like that blend. I really like social interaction together with a game that has a meaty set of rules. And I think Hanabi sort of scratches that itch for me. It can be hard not to game this game. And what I mean by that is that the game sort of behooves you to follow the rules to the letter. And that's not always a fun thing to do with the game, but I think that the game is so well structured that you really need to do that. And here's an example of what I mean, because I know that can be a little bit confusing, all that gobbledygook that I just said. But let's say, for example, you're giving a clue to someone, and you say, okay, just as an example, this card and this card are ones. Okay? Now, if you're following the letter of the law, you should say, okay, I'm going to spend a clue. This card and this card are ones. That's how you should say it. I have played in games where people say, okay, I'm going to give you a clue. This card and this card here are ones. Sometimes it's been that obvious. Sometimes it's been a little more subtle than that. But nevertheless, that is going against the spirit of the law, if not the letter of the law. And this depends entirely on the game group that you have. And it's probably the most contentious point about Hanabi. This is very, very dependent on the people that you play with. Do you want it to be more of a casual game like that, where it's just kind of fun and jokey and it doesn't, you kind of play fast and loose with the rules? Or do you want it to be that thick, brain-burning game with the hardcore gamers? You need to make that decision, and you need to let people know that when you play the game. Otherwise, there's going to be some people that are going to be very disappointed one way or the other. For me, I like to follow the letter and the law of this game because I think that Mr. Bowser did a fantastic job designing this, and it works. You get all the social interaction you need just from following those rules and using the clues in the right way. There's some things you can do that I haven't actually tried, which is I've seen a method on Board Game Geek where people lay their arrange their cards vertically in their hands in such a way that people know that the card on the bottom is the one that I'm going to discard, and the card on the top is the one that I plan on playing if you don't tell me differently. Things like that I haven't tried. I don't know if that games the system too much for me in my taste, but I certainly do the whole thing where I'm holding a hand of cards and I turn cards certain ways if I know information about them. Like, I don't really have a fast and true system, but in certain games I've had it where if these cards are turned sideways over here, I know the color and the number. I know everything about them. These cards turn sideways over here, I only know color. These cards turn sideways, I only know number. Things like that. So you just need to play. You need to play it by ear. Who's the people that you're playing with? How do you like to play the game? And how do you want other people to react in the game? And I think that's a fantastic thing. I think it's great that you have so many options in this really tiny box of how you want to enjoy the game, how you want to play it. There's variant rules in the game which really prolong the life, like the rainbow colored cards and having them either count as a whole other color or having them count as every color and really increasing the difficulty. As far as the components of this game, I've only played one of the other versions. I played like the original European version. I think it was what it was. I liked it a little bit more than this. They didn't do a great job in the production of this one. The box is really like way too tight. It should not be like that. The little tokens, I don't think they did as good a job as the other version. The cards, I would really like to get one of the better, sort of maybe even the square card version. But really, for what it is and for the price that it is, any version is going to do for this game. I love it. I think it's a great game. It almost made my top 10 of 2013. And as I play it more, who knows? It might creep up there on my, if I ever have a top 100 list. Really great game. Can't wait to play it more. Hopefully I can talk some of the people who are stressed out at it into playing it more, because I think it deserves it. I think it deserved the Spiel des Jahres win as much as any of the other games that were nominated. And I think Antoine Bauza had another home run with this one. So my name is Nick. This has been Board Game Brawl. This was Hanabi, and I'm reminding you to get out there and game every day and in every way. Take care.